Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, entitled Prayers by the Demigods to Lord Krishna in the Womb of Mother Devaki. Text number 32. Ye anye aravindaksha vimukta maninaha ye anye aravindaksha vimukta maninaha vayi asta bhavad avishuddha buddhayah त्वय्यस्त भावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धयः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद् अंघ्रयः पतन्त्यधो नादृत युष्मदंघ्रयः येऽरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनः वय्यस्तभावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धयः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः पतन्त्यधो अनादृत युष्मदंघ्रयः ये अन्येऽरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनः वय्यस्तभावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धयः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः पतन्त्यधो नादृत युष्मदंघ्रयः येऽरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनः वय्यस्तभावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धयः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः पतन्त्यधो अनादृत युष्मदंघ्रयः येऽरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनः वय्यस्तभावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धयः आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परम पदम ततः पतन्त्यधो अनादृत युष्मदंघ्रयः ये अन्ये anyone or all others aravinda aksha O lotus-eyed one vimuktamaninaha falsely considering themselves free from the bondage of material contamination, tvayi, unto you, astabhavad, speculating in various ways, but not knowing or desiring more information of your lotus feet. Avishuddha buddhayaha, whose intelligence is still not purified and who do not know the goal of life, aruhya, even though achieving krichrena, by undergoing severe austerities, penances, and hard labor, param padam, the highest position, according to their imagination and speculation, tataha, from that position, patanti, they fall, adhaha, down into material existence again, anadruta, neglecting devotion to yushmat, your anghrayaha, lotus feet. A translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. Please repeat this translation after me. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. Now the purport is very, very big, so I'll not read the purport, but directly we will discuss the purport. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this verse is a very, very, very important verse which reveals a very confidential truth about liberation. All of you would have heard that liberation is the ultimate goal of life. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Moksha means liberation. But what people generally do not know is that there are different kinds of liberation. So among the different kinds of liberation, one of the types of liberation is what is very commonly known among the general people, general public, that to merge into God. So that understanding of that kind of liberation is actually due to incomplete understanding of who is God or what is God. It's also due to incomplete understanding of who am I. So in this particular verse, it is described that those who have an understanding that our goal of life is ultimately liberation, and that liberation means I want to get out of this material world, yes, but I want to go beyond this material world and merge into God. And what is God? God is impersonal, personal Brahman. So that impersonal Brahman is explained in the scriptures. The God's feature as impersonal Brahman is explained as the spiritual sky which is illuminated by the effulgence which is coming from the transcendental body of Krishna. Krishna's body is full of effulgence, and that effulgence is spread throughout the spiritual sky, everywhere. And that effulgence or that light is called Brahma Jyoti, to distinguish it from ordinary light that we know of in this world. That is spiritual light. It is not material light. It's not like the light we get from the sun or light we get from our incandescent bulb or this tube light, or even the light we get from fire. Any kind of light source in this material world is one kind of light that we know. But there is another kind of light in the spiritual world that is called Brahma Jyoti, spiritual light. So that spiritual light is the effulgence that is emanating from the transcendental form of Krishna. So these spiritualists who want to merge into God, they think God means that Brahma Jyoti, that spiritual light. They do not know the source of this spiritual light. Yes, the scriptures describe one feature of God is that Brahma Jyoti. That is the impersonal feature of God. Impersonal feature. Why impersonal? Because that feature of God is the source of this entire material world. So this material world, where is it coming from? It is coming from that Brahma Jyoti. But Brahma Jyoti is coming from Krishna. So therefore, ultimately, this material world also is coming from Krishna. But not directly, but through the Brahma Jyoti. So this Brahma Jyoti is like illuminating the entire spiritual sky. This spiritual light, how is it different from material light? Of course, this spiritual light illuminates the entire spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, there is no darkness. Material world by characteristic is dark. So we require illumination in this material world. So as we have experience, in the daytime, we have the illumination of the sun. So the scriptures describe in this material world, there are many planets. But of all the planets, only one planet is luminous, is giving out some light. Then what about the moon? What about the stars we see at night? They are also luminous, but they are reflecting the light of the sun. So any other luminous planet, in the scriptures, it is described as a star, nakshatra. And the moon also is a star. It is the principal star. Therefore, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Nakshatranam aham shashi. Among all the stars, I am the moon. Because at night, all the stars that are reflecting the light of the sun and shining, which is the brightest? It is the moon. So moon is the brightest star. And all other stars are not as bright as the moon. So how is it that the sun is the only self-luminous planet? That is also explained in the Bhagavatam. These are all secrets revealed in the Bhagavatam. The sun is luminous because inside the sun planet there is the sun god. And the sunshine that is coming out of the sun planet is actually the effulgence of the body of sun god, Surya Deva. It is his effulgence. Now, how is Surya Deva so effulgent that his bodily effulgence can light the entire universe, billions of planets? Was it possible? So it is not because the sun god is independently having an effulgence of his body, but inside the heart of the sun god, of course, everybody's heart, we know Krishna is there as Paramatma. So, but the Paramatma seated in the heart of the sun god, he displays a little of his own Brahma Jyoti. So what is this sunshine? Actually, it is Brahma Jyoti only. It is Brahma Jyoti. That Brahma Jyoti is actually whose effulgence? The effulgence of the Paramatma in the heart of the sun god. And therefore, there's a special name for that Paramatma feature in the heart of the sun god called Surya Narayana. You heard this name, Surya Narayana. So who's Surya Narayana? The Lord in the heart, Narayana in the heart of the sun god. So ultimately, source of all light is Krishna's own bodily effulgence. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Rasoham apsu konteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo. I am the light of the sun. I am the light of the moon. Now you understand why Krishna says that. So it is Krishna's bodily effulgence that's the only source of light in the spiritual world, in the material world, from the sun, from the moon, from the fire, from the spiritual gems. Everything, ultimately, the only source is Krishna. Now, these spiritualists who do not know that the personality of Godhead Krishna, because they deny. When scriptures are describing Krishna is a transcendental personality, Bhagavad Gita, clearly it is said by Krishna, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate. That he is the ultimate source of everything, and that everything means the material and the spiritual worlds. So he is the source of the spiritual world also, not only the material world. And he is the transcendental personality. He is not an ordinary person like another devata. No. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, declares, Krishna is the Purusha. Purusha, what kind of Purusha is he? Not a Purusha like the persons of this material world. He is Purusham Shashwatam Divyam. He is the eternal, permanent, unending Purusha. He has no beginning. He has no end. He is eternally a person. Eternally a person. Adi Devam. He is the origin of the Devatas also. The origin of the Devatas also. Ajam. And he never takes birth in this material world. So then, what is the meaning of his appearing as the son of Devaki? That is his mercy upon us, that he appears like that to perform his Leela pastimes. Appears like that to perform his pastimes. Therefore, he says, Janma karma chame divyam. Because he is a Divya Purusha, his birth is also Divya, his activities are also Divya. Janma karma chame divyam. Divya janma, divya karma. Divya Purusha. Nobody else's personality in this material world is a spiritual personality. Everybody in this material world has got a material body, either gross or subtle. Only the Supreme Lord has a transcendental body in the spiritual world. And when he comes to this material world, he comes in that same spiritual body. He comes in a spiritual body. He doesn't come in a material body. He doesn't accept a body manufactured or developed in the mother's womb. So as Krishna, he entered the heart of Vasudeva, and from Vasudeva's heart he was transferred to the heart of Devaki. And how did that happen? That happened through initiation. Through initiation. Vasudeva initiated Devaki And that is when Krishna was transferred from the heart of Vasudeva to the heart of Devaki. And once he entered the heart of Devaki, from the heart of Devaki, he entered the womb of Devaki. So he is not conceived by Devaki like ordinary parents conceive a child. No. So this is the secret or the confidential understanding of Divya Janma. And Divya Janma means Divya Purusha. Only can have Divya Janma like that. So Divya Purusha is the Divya Purusha. Shashwatam, Divyam, Purusham, Shashwatam, Divyam. Very clearly given, everything is given in the Bhagavad Gita. But some people, they interpret the Bhagavad Gita and they make their own meanings. So all these other people who interpret the Bhagavad Gita or who speculate about who is God or who have got incomplete understanding about God even from the Vedas, all such people are described here as ye and ye. Apart from the devotees who have got perfect knowledge of God, who have got proper understanding of what the Vedas are describing about God, apart from these devotees, there are also others who also have some knowledge of God or who speculate about God or who are interested in God or who are desiring liberation. They are desiring liberation from this material world. So all these are described in this verse because the previous 3 verses described about devotees. So devotees have very clear goal. We belong to Krishna. Krishna actually is in the spiritual world, his own personal abode. And that personal abode is beyond the Brahma Jyoti. It is not one of the planets, the Vaikuntha planets, or Goloka Vrindavana, Krishna's planet, Krishna Loka, is not like one of the planets of this material world. It is a transcendental planet. And that transcendental planet is beyond the Brahma Jyoti. It is beyond the Brahma Jyoti. So, because these impersonalists cannot go beyond, cannot penetrate the Brahma Jyoti, because of the dazzling effulgence of Krishna's form, which is blinding. It is so bright that unless Krishna gives the vision of his spiritual form by diminishing his bodily effulgence, until he does that, till then nobody can see Krishna, nobody can have vision of Krishna, Krishna's form. So when Krishna comes to this world, he actually diminishes his bodily effulgence to the extent that he appears like another ordinary human being. He appears like another ordinary human being. Because if he were to display his bodily effulgence, we cannot see his form at all. We cannot see his form. And even that Brahma Jyoti light, which is coming out of his body, is not like this sunlight. It's not like one very, very powerful halogen lamp that is blinding and very dazzling. No, it is not at all material light to begin with. So what is spiritual light? It is something else. Spiritual light is something else. But that spiritual light, definitely, even for people who are practice spiritual life, severe austerities and penances, to rise above this material world, material existence, even they cannot understand or realize what is that spiritual world. They do not know what is the spiritual world. Then if they have some understanding, the spiritual world is some impersonal light, impersonal Jyoti, Brahma Jyoti. That's a description in the scriptures. Brahma Jyoti. So then that Brahma Jyoti, Krishna reveals to those who are able to transcend this material world and rise above the gunas, but he reveals that as spiritual light. That's all. He does not reveal to them his spiritual personality, which is the source of that spiritual light. That is not revealed to them. Whereas the devotees, right from the beginning of their bhakti, their understanding of the absolute truth is Krishna is the absolute truth. Krishna is the transcendental personality. And Krishna's bodily effulgence is the Brahma Jyoti. And Krishna's expansion in this material world is the form of the incarnations who appear from time to time, and the form of Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and also the Paramatma within the heart of everyone. That is also Krishna's expansion. So therefore, in the Bhagavatam, it is described that Ete chamsha kala pumsaha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. All the incarnations described by Suta Goswami, he concludes by telling all these incarnations are Amsha and Kala. Amsha means a portion, and Kala means a portion of the portion. Of whom? Of Krishna, who is Swayam Bhagavan. He himself is that original person whose Amsha is these incarnations. So Krishna is not an incarnation like the other incarnations, in the sense that Krishna is not an Amsha or a Kala. So that is also explained in the Bhagavatam. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Swayam Bhagavan. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals in the 11th chapter, it is described by Krishna himself, that Arjuna asks, can I see the form in which you have entered this entire universe? Because 10th chapter he says, in the end of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that all the splendor, all the opulence of Krishna in this material world that he describes in the 10th chapter, he says that opulence or splendor is because Krishna has entered into this material world by a very, very, very tiny portion of his, called as Paramatma. Called as Paramatma. So as Paramatma, he enters into this material world. Only then this material world begins to develop. So before the creation, this material energy is lying inert in the Brahma Jyoti, one corner of the Brahma Jyoti's spiritual sky, like a cloud. Just like in the sky, the sun is there in the daytime, but if there is a cloud covering the sun, then we don't have the full light of the sun, and the cloud is very, very thick, dark cloud, then almost it becomes like it is dark. There's no light at all. So, the scriptures explain, and even our common sense we can understand, it's not that the cloud is covering the sun. The cloud is covering our vision of the sun. Just like it is cloudy, let us say in Mysore. You just go beyond Mysore. That cloud is just about few hundred meters or just a few kilometers, it's spread. So you go beyond 30, 40 kilometers away from Mysore, the sun will be brightly shining. Sun will be brightly shining, there's no cloud. So then you understand this cloud is only covering our vision of the sun. It can only cover a small portion of the entire Earth planet. The cloud cannot cover the sun. Similarly, this cloud of this material energy, it is so, it's not very, very big compared to the vast spiritual sky. So it covers our vision of the spiritual sky, this material energy. Therefore, the material world, which is under that cloud of the spiritual sky, called the material energy, therefore the material world is dark. Because that cloud, just like the cloud is covering the sun, which is cloud is covering only a very, very insignificant portion of the sun or the sky. The sky is much more vast than the portion which is covered by the cloud. Similarly, the spiritual sky is very, very, very vast as compared to the tiny portion covered by the material energy. It's like a cloud. In that cloud, that material energy, first of all, the Supreme Lord, Narayana, he expands as Mahavishnu and he enters into it. And then when he enters, everything begins, the creation begins by his entrance. Otherwise, the material energy is lying inert. In that material energy, the entire matter, whatever this material world is made of, that matter in its original state as the unmanifest material energy is lying. And all the living entities, they are also lying in a dormant state, like in a sleeping condition, without any material body, without any material mind, without any material intelligence. They are lying as spirit soul, simply like in a sleeping condition. So the material energy is inert, and the living entities from the previous destruction. See, this creation, maintenance, destruction is a cycle of this entire material existence. So, in the previous destruction, those who did not get liberated, who gets liberated at the time of the final destruction? Only Brahma and the residents of Brahmaloka. They get liberated. They get out of this material existence itself. But the other residents of the other planets, they actually are put into a condition where they are put into ignorance about themselves, about everything else that is happening. And in that ignorant state, they are simply in that cloud-like portion of the spiritual sky, where they are just accommodated. And when the creation begins, the Supreme Lord enters as Mahavishnu, and then he glances over this material energy and activates it. By his glance, the material energy is activated. It becomes active in terms of the three gunas. The active portion of the active feature of this material energy is called the three gunas, which now is influencing all of us, is affecting everybody. The sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. And due to this influence or the action of these three gunas, all the changes are taking place in this material world. All the changes are taking place. You see this table. This table will not remain as it is, with the strength and with the form and the structure, everything. It deteriorates. We know, we have experience. Anything material deteriorates. Why is it deteriorating? Because of the action of the gunas. Because of the action of the gunas. So it's constantly, these gunas are acting on different material objects and transforming them. So those gunas, that inert material energy itself, the gunas will start transforming that material energy into the elements. So the 24 elements are generated by the action of these gunas, and then those 24 elements are combined by Brahma to give us all bodies. We are all lying in that cloud-like portion of the spiritual sky. So this is the creation, that creation of differentiating that material energy into the 24 elements is done by the glance of Mahavishnu. And the glance of Mahavishnu also injects the living entities into the womb of material nature. So one place in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the seed-giving father, and material nature is the mother of all living entities. In the 14th chapter. What is the meaning of this? How is Krishna the father, seed-giving father? He injects the living entities at the beginning of the creation into the womb of material nature. Now, how material nature becomes the womb? It is after Krishna's glance that the material energy, inert material energy, differentiates into the different elements. And from the elements being acted upon by the gunas, the whole transformation begins, that the universes are formed. And within those universes, the differentiation happens as to the different planets. The same substance is the material energy itself. Same substance, the material energy itself. Just like you sow a seed into the earth. Whatever the nutrients from the earth, that actually develops the seed. The seed develops, germinates, and then a small offshoot comes out, and then that grows. First the plant or the tree in the form of a plant or a small sapling, and then it grows and grows. Then the same ingredients differentiate into some portion called the root of the tree, some portion called the trunk of the tree. The same ingredients, same nutrients from the earth, from the soil, the same water, the same sunshine, the same air. All this is actually transforming into the different parts of the tree. So initially you just see a sapling, then the sapling begins to grow, then some roots, then some trunk, then some leaves, then some flowers, then some fruit. And finally in the fruit there is a seed for further, procreation. Further procreation. So, this, just like the same ingredients differentiate into the parts of the tree, same way the same material energy differentiates into the elements, and the action of the gunas on the elements differentiates into first the universe, and the universe differentiates into planets, and from the planets, each planet, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, all that, the planets are made inhabitable again by the action of the gunas on the material energy itself, differentiating and forming all these. Anyway, it's a very big subject. This is all described in the Bhagavatam in detail. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna just says, I am the seed-giving father and material nature is the mother. Now, material nature as the mother, that is, the living entity is injected by the glance of Mahavishnu into the different forms in which the living entity can take birth in this material world. Now, birth also, in different species, it happens differently. In the human beings, it is the embryo. We are born from the embryo. That embryo is formed by the combination of the secretion of the father and the mother. Whereas, in the case of plants, it is the seed. So, Bhagavatam describes there are 4 different ways in which a living entity can take birth in this material world. In the species of plants and trees, it is always through the seed. And in the case of birds, it is through an egg. In the case of animals and humans, it is through the embryo. So seed, egg, embryo, and 4th one is called from the perspiration, from a fermentation. Just like this bacteria, how do they procreate? They simply multiply in a fermenting culture. So all those microbes and germs, they are always born from this fermentation. All the plants and trees are born from seed. All the birds, snakes, fishes, they are born from egg. And the animals and other higher species, they are always born from an embryo. So injecting the living entity into the embryo, into the womb of the mother, or injecting the living entity into the seed, injecting the living entity into an egg. Just like they say, we eat eggs. Eggs are not living. So we are not killing any living being when we eat eggs. But what they don't realize is that egg is the womb into which the living entity is injected before the egg is laid by the bird or the reptile or the fish. So, unless life enters into inert matter, matter cannot develop into this body. Matter cannot take birth. Living entity cannot take birth simply from matter. So that injecting happens through the process of laying an egg. Only then the egg will actually give birth to a living being. A chicken is born out of an egg. or a bird is taking birth from the egg. It's not just that the egg is somehow cultured, or kind of some transformation happens, chemical action happens. This is the atheistic theory that chemical transformation of matter is giving rise to living beings. No. Living being means life comes from life. Prabhupada actually explained this in detail in one conversation, and that's compiled into a book called Life Comes from Life. So like this, the Supreme Lord actually injects the living entity in the beginning of creation into the different... so where is the first seed coming from? If the Lord is creating the first seed, is creating the first embryo, is creating the first egg, he is creating the first... that is the action of Mahavishnu. That's not the action of Mahavishnu, it's the action of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, the second Vishnu. Anyway, it's the action of Vishnu. And then further, the once that is injected, then that particular tree develops, and the tree gives rise to so many fruits. Each fruit has got a seed. Then again that seed is falling on the earth, that seed germinates, and then more trees are born. Like that. So the first male and female of the human species, Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, they combine and they produce offspring. So then, who created them? They are created by the Supreme Lord. Because before them there were no humans. There were no humans. So the Lord created Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, the first male and female human species. And they combined and their children. So that's why we are called Manushya, because we are coming from Manu. Brahma in one place is described as the grandfather of all human beings. Why? Because Manu is our father, and Manu's father is Brahma. Brahma apparently was born from, Manu was born from Brahma, but actually Brahma gave birth to Manu not by the process like any human being is born. No. Appeared when the Supreme Lord, through Brahma, suddenly the Prajapati, Manu is called the Prajapati. So one of the Prajapatis. So he is coming out of the body of Brahma. Therefore he accepts Brahma is my father. But Brahma gets that potency to create the Prajapatis, who will create the further progeny of each species by the power invested in him by Krishna. So therefore Krishna is described in the prayers by Arjuna in the 11th chapter as great grandfather. Why? Because he is the father of Brahma himself. Brahma was born from Vishnu. Then from Brahma, Manu was born. And from Manu, we are all descending, all the human beings. So therefore, our father is Manu, our grandfather is Brahma, our great-grandfather is Vishnu or Krishna. But Krishna in the beginning, when he injects all the living entities, the first time creation takes place, that is the reason Krishna says, I am your father. And material nature is the mother. The actual injecting is happening not directly by Krishna, but through Krishna's incarnation called Shiva. Therefore, some place in the scriptures it is said, Shiva is everybody's father and Parvati or Durga is everybody's mother. Because Durga is personification of material nature and Shiva is the incarnation of the Lord who injects the living entity into the womb of material nature. So, in that sense, in the beginning of the creation, Shiva and Parvati are giving birth to all the creatures. So, there are different descriptions in different places in the scriptures. So, for a person who is not properly knowing what is actually happening, the details from the Bhagavatam or the confidential literature, they read some Purana and they laugh and say, "Huh, Shiva and Parvati are everybody's father and mother. I know my father and mother are different from Shiva and Parvati. How can we say except Shiva and Parvati is our mother and father? And Shiva and Parvati are like humans. How can they give birth to reptiles? How can they give birth to birds? How can they give birth to? Because they are described the father and mother of all the creatures in this entire creation, material creation. So these are all very, very, by speculation we cannot understand. We can never figure out. That's why the atheists mock at people who study the scriptures, what your scriptures are describing as Shiva and Parvati as father and mother of everybody. So modern man thinks, oh, these are right. How can Shiva and Parvati, who in the form of human beings, be everybody's father and mother, the father and mother of chickens and hens and birds and animals? How can they give birth? Have you ever seen some human being give birth to an animal? Never. So this is actually utter foolishness to not understand properly from the right source. The very scriptures which is describing Shiva and Parvati as the father and mother of the entire creation, those very scriptures are also describing how they are the father and mother. These foolish people, they don't have the patience to go through the scriptures properly, under proper guidance. Even if they study the entire Vedas, they can never understand all these, how it is happening, how things are taking place, how the sun is so effulgent. They have to read that portion which explains that the sun is effulgent because of the sun god's bodily effulgence, and sun god's bodily effulgence is so much of light, sunshine, because the Surya, the Supreme Lord's Brahma Jyoti, is there in the heart of the sun god as Surya Narayana. So all these things they cannot understand simply by studying the Vedas in an academic way, or simply by speculating, analyzing, theorizing, observation, inference. All this will not work. It will never work. So therefore, here it is explained. Everything is explained in the Bhagavatam. Everything is explained in the confidential portions of the Vedic literature. That's why this Bhagavatam is very, very confidential knowledge. The beginning of the Bhagavatam, it is said, Shukadev Goswami, last point I'll make and then I'll stop. Shukadev Goswami, Suta Goswami offers prayers to his spiritual master Shukadev Goswami, who spoke the Bhagavatam first time, that I offer my obeisances to my spiritual master Shukadev Goswami, who actually spoke this most confidential Purana, Purana Guhyam, of all the Puranas. The most confidential Purana is this Bhagavata Purana. Because this gives that confidential understanding of what was there before the creation. What happened at the time of creation. What all happened. Those details are there in the Bhagavatam that you can't find everywhere. Those details you can't find in every scripture. No. Only in the Bhagavatam. Only in the Bhagavatam. Certain things are there only in the Bhagavatam. It's not there in any other place in the entire gamut of Vedic literature. None of the other scriptures have it. Vedas just say the original source of everything is the absolute truth. That's all. Janmadhyasya taha. But Bhagavatam expands on that Janmadhyasyataha Anvayati Tarataha Chartheshu Abhijnaswarat Tene Brahma Hrudayadi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayah. This is the first verse, the opening verse of the Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, first verse. Expands on that Vedic statement which others speculate and try to figure out how the absolute truth is the source of everything. No speculation will help you understand. You have to study the Bhagavatam, which is the commentary on that Vedanta Sutra, which describes the absolute truth as the source of everything. That's why the Bhagavatam is described as a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the author himself of Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra author is Vyasadeva. Bhagavatam author is also Vyasadeva. So the same author, he is explaining that Janmadhyasyataha in this Bhagavatam. So before he begins to explain, he says, what is that absolute truth? It is Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasyataha. Tene, by him only, Brahma got all the knowledge. Like that. So, our request is, please don't hear all these other people's explanation of the scriptures. They don't know, other than devotees who studied the Bhagavatam, who accept the Bhagavatam as the source of the most confidential understanding. Others cannot have this confidential knowledge, what is there in the Bhagavatam. And even the Bhagavatam, there are so many Bhagavad Katha reciters. They simply want to entertain their audience. They don't want to give them the knowledge that is there in the Bhagavatam. That's why they want to finish off in 7 days. Because you can't give this knowledge in 7 days. Impossible. Parikshit could understand in 7 days the whole Bhagavatam. What is Parikshit's standard? What is his intelligence like? Supremely intelligent among all the created beings. Parikshit. He could hear and understand what Shukadeva Goswami is speaking in 7 days. We cannot understand. That's why Prabhupada has written volumes and volumes of purports for each of the verse of the Bhagavatam. He has explained so much. This purport is so big. I have not even touched the purport. There's something about the purport I have touched. It takes a lot of time to explain. So therefore, don't hear these kathakars of Bhagavatam. They may have a nice voice. They may entertain the audience, or they may sing very nicely, or they may tell nice stories from the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not stories. Bhagavatam is factual description of historical incidents, especially concerning the Supreme Lord and his pure devotees. So that the Kathakar cannot explain. Only pure devotees and the followers of the pure devotees can explain. So you have to hear the Bhagavatam or any scripture or any explanation of the Vedas only from pure devotees and their sincere followers, and nobody else. Nobody else can explain. Others will only mislead you. So I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, here is an announcement. We'll be celebrating Sri Vyasa Puja, the 128th appearance day of